we get started, we want to take a moment of silence for Deputy William May, whose end of watch, and we're going to flash his picture up on the pod for the video, but whose end of watch came April 2nd, 2025, as he was actively protecting and serving our community. Mm-hmm. And man, the story's terrible. You can read up about it. We don't have to relive it, but I just want to take a moment of silence for a second here on this show for Deputy William May. Okay. That's powerful.
Silence is always powerful.
Silence is always powerful.
Amen.
You kind of go into some prayer with it, and you go in some thoughts with it, and I know that affected your organization greatly. I was, of course, also appreciated to seeing how well the community turned out.
That motorcade
was amazing.
I was standing down at Applebee's watching it come down the hill.
The stories that have been told, the things I've read have been told of that deputy and his family. So I know he's going to continue to have an impact in your department probably for a long time.
And his father had a Will's dad retired. So Walton County the sheriff's office here is a little bit different in that we are also fire rescue. So we're fire and EMS north of the Chattahoochee Bay.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah. And we have one of the largest fire departments in this part of the state of Florida. So,
wow.
But his dad had retired as an assistant chief for us, a battalion chief. And so that it touches home even more so in that Will's dad, spent a career at Walton County Fire Rescue in the sheriff's office, and so there, a life dedicated to public service. And I think one of the things that I tried to get across about this, and I said this at his funeral, you don't have to make more of Will in death than he was in life, and I think that's always a little bit of a mistake.
Sure,
because the reality of it is, I judge a man by. There's an expression we always say: ethics is what you do when nobody's looking.
Yeah.
Right. I like that, but here's a better version of that to me, which is integrity is what you do when everybody's looking, when it matters. And so that, to me, was Will's defining moment of measurement, in that when it mattered, he answered that call. And there's no more. And I tell men and women, they start all the time, the price for this business can be blood. And people listen because they watch cop shows. A little interesting study, a Pew Research study from a few years ago, they asked people about policing in general. And almost 90% of the public surveyed said they understood the job. Think about that for a second. Tell me another job where not the job. They felt they had a full understanding of the job. Well, they don't.
No.
Right. And certainly when it comes time to pay that price, that's it's a hard thing at multiple levels. And I think it's important. We have lost deputies over this incident. We will lose staff over this. And there's no shame in that. For some people, this is then they need to do something else. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
So it hit them that hard, huh? They just
it's a pretty common thing for people to leave. Yeah, for sure. But it's not real to you when you're 27 years old or 30 years old, or maybe you come on, your wife says or your husband says, "I don't want you doing this anymore."
Yeah.
You got a kid at home.
Right.
Honey, you're a deputy sheriff.
Right.
Why do you don't need to do this?
Yeah.
Right.
We don't need to do this. And so people don't think about that.
Yeah.
No, you don't.
And that's for me, and I've been doing this 32 years. We always talk about events like Will's, which is the most dramatic that people see. Here's what I see wears people down in my profession that nobody ever talks about, which is when you stand at a door at 2 o'clock in the morning, knock, 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 knock. Somebody comes to the door and you go, "Mr. Johnson, I regret to inform you that your daughter's not coming home."
I couldn't do it.
So,
could not do it.
But the problem is you got to do it because that's the business we're in.
But
right?
I could not do that business.
But I tell you, and so that's not something you see, right? But it's something that's done every day. I don't have enough fingers and toes for the times I've done that. So those are the kind of things that I think, wear these men and women down more than you can possibly realize.
Yeah.
You know, a day in and day out. I know you said you had Julie Porterfield on here. Just I love Julie. I consider her a great friend.
She does a great job.
She does
too.
God's work. She is a wonderful, wonderful human being. She's done really amazing stuff. But we always used to talk about this when a deputy or an investigator, police or whatever, goes to interview these children and deal with these things. This is day in, day out. And I will routinely, I'll say something like that. Somebody go, well, don't tell me about it. I don't want to hear it. Well, first of all, I wasn't going to tell you about it. So that's A.
Yeah.
But think about fundamentally what you're saying. You can't even hear the thought of that.
Yeah.
You can't bear the thought of me accidentally telling you something.
Right.
No.
And then everybody else is living with it.
So
dealing with it day in and out. So, those are the kind of things that I think I know people don't understand.
Yeah.
From that point. And so I just think when in a case like Will's where there was absolutely nothing he could have done differently.
Right.
32 years I'm doing this, and I'm telling you, you could not have done it any better than he did it, and it wasn't his day. And that's the reality of the business we are in.
I mean, a terrible tragedy I just remember it stopped me in my tracks when I
call it what it is. It's a murder.
Murder.
It is.
Yeah,
It's a
100%
small
it
community.
is.
The murder.
It was senseless. It sounds senseless.
It doesn't even make sense.
And your press conference right after it, I remember you saying something of that.
Yeah, he said
there was like this. There's no way to.
I can't tell you we're going to learn something from it. I can't tell you we're going to handle something different because we're not.
Right.
We're not.
Right.
In some ways, it would be easier, I think, for even the public to say, "Well, you didn't do X, you didn't do Y." Or you train, if you'd have trained more. There's no...
It sounds like his training kicked in because 100%. The threat was stopped.
The threat was stopped. So he put 6 rounds on target after being mortally wounded.
Wow.
It's a phenomenon. From holster. It is fun. From holster.
With a pistol.
Wow.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
How's that?
It's unbelievable.
That's unbelievable.
Your training just kicks in. You hear that in the military. You hear, trust your training.